This is Real News Media TV, coverage you can trust. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates. Good afternoon, my Real News Media TV family. Welcome back to the channel for another news update for September 4, 2023. And in the news this afternoon, comes concerned about emerging trend of fathers and stepfathers sexually abusing daughters in Trelawney. With children being the complainants in 36 of the 46 sex offense cases heard by the Trelawney Circuit Court last term, Commander of the Police Division for that parish, Deputy Superintendent Winston Milton, says cops are now worried about an emerging trend whereby fathers and stepfathers are primarily the perpetrators in the area, which has struggled with pedophilia historically. We are seeing an emerging trend with fathers and stepfathers being the perpetrators, Milton told the news on Monday. The cop, who said he was unable to supply the figures, stated that while police records have indicated that there has been a historical issue with sex crimes against the children, there had been nothing to indicate that fathers were having sex with their daughters. Now, he says the police have been seeing more of this occurrence, which is offset by an even more worrying factor of complicit relatives who would prefer that the victimized children keep silent. The worrying concern for us in relation to this is that sometimes we see these victims being victims twice, meaning they are victims of a sexual crime, and there is also pressure by family members not to pursue the matter in court, and they are seen as pariahs when they do, Milton told the news. According to the divisional commander, who said he is nonplussed by the reasoning of the adults in question, it is felt that because the crime has already occurred, the offending relative should be allowed to continue life without prosecution. In noting the high numbers of cases before the courts for prosecution in this respect, DSP Milton said, "We know we are going up against a deep-seated cultural practice, and it won't turn around overnight, but we have been relentless. We are enjoying 100% clear-up rate in relation to these cases because the victims know their perpetrators, and this is because the perpetrators are usually in a position of trust, neighbors, guardians, fathers, stepfathers. What we do know is that we have a serious social issue in the parish in relation to this particular concern," DSP Milton said, noting that some of the cases were before the courts prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. He said the police have been partnering with external stakeholders like the church, lay magistrates, and others to reach some of the likely victims and the perpetrators. The lawman's observations parallel those made by a senior member of the bar with a knowledge of the matters before the court in that locale. The lawyer, in an exclusive interview with the news in July, highlighting cases like that of a father who repeatedly abducted his teen daughter and raped her while videoing the encounters to satisfy what he said was his curiosity about what sex with his own child would feel like to a 60-year-old who threatened to obey his 12-year-old neighbor if she did not have sex with him, called for the communities to be named and ashamed. The victims, who the news learned are largely from the South Trelawney communities of Albertown, Sawyer, Deeside, Litchfield, and the Bottom River, have been largely ostracized by community members, some of whom have gone as far as to classify some of them as loose and sluts. We are in a crisis in southern Trelawney. When you can pinpoint a geographical area, it is bad. It is not a situation where it is scattered all over the place. I think these communities need to be named and ashamed. They need to hear their community names being called, and they are ashamed that this is where they live. It is terrible down here," the senior counsel told the news. She said in this instance, no fingers can be pointed at the justice system. It's not a failure on the part of the police to respond or to act. The matters are before the courts, so the police must be doing something, but the communities are complicit. The people who live in these communities are just so accepting. It's the norm, the attorney stated. Chief Justice Brian Sykes, who was on the Trelawney Circuit and hearing the matters, blasted the offenders while slapping them with heavy sentences and disparaging what he termed a cultural and a pattern in that locale. In March last year, the government opened a new child-friendly space for interviewing and assisting child victims operated by the Center for the Investigation of Sexual Offenses and Child Abuse in Trelawney. The multidisciplinary space was designed to provide child victims with a safe and a private location to access immediate law enforcement and medical attention, as well as referral to additional services in a trauma-informed setting. Crawford predicts a further teacher resignation fallout. More than 400 public school teachers have resigned from the education sector within the past 11 days, leading up to this week's start of the new school term, and already the opposition People's National Party spokesman on education, Damian Crawford, has predicted that there will be a similar fallout before the end of the month. I am predicting that another 300 will leave the next 20 days because the teachers don't resign from the ministry, the teachers resign from the school. There is a natural time gap between when the school receives and the ministry is advised, stated Crawford, who noted that this is not a rocket science scenario. Crawford was addressing a PNP West Central Constituency Conference at the Granville Primary School on Saturday. Statistician and the University of the West Indies lecturer Dr. Andre Houghton is the party's standard bearer for the constituency. Last Wednesday, Education and Youth Minister Favour Williams told a post-cabinet press briefing that the number of teachers leaving the system jumped from 427 on August 18 to 854 on August 29. Williams noted that the number of resignations represents a 44% decline in comparison to the 1,538 teachers who resigned during the same period last year. However, Crawford has no confidence in the minister's assessment of the impact on the sector. She did the same thing last year when the highest number of resignations happened in the country's history, stated Crawford. Even though Williams stated last week that several vacant positions from last year were filled, Crawford argued that there is no way a school can be better off if it lost a certain number of teachers last year who were not replaced, and yet another set were lost this year. The minister reported that it is better now because there is a reduction in the numbers this year from last year, when last year was massive. And we run behind that reasoning, not realizing that at the secondary level, if one teacher is absent, it affects 160 students, stated Crawford, who explained his claim using the analogy of a mathematician teacher having to teach 4 classes of 40 students each. Crawford said all except the employers of public school teachers have admitted to a crisis at hand. You have a set of people in this country that don't know when there's a crisis. And I don't know why you have to debate if there's a crisis, because the Jamaica Teachers Association said there is a crisis. The principal said there is a crisis. The parents said there is a crisis. The children said there is a crisis. The opposition said there is a crisis. The only group that doesn't see it is the government, and somehow we should have said that we fool and them smart, stated Crawford. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates.